Hey guys, welcome to Sports Fan Network. I'm Andrew.
I'm Travis.
And continuing our preview for the NFL Free Agency 2018. In this segment, we're going to be looking at some players that we feel like will be overpaid in free agency, as well as some guys that will be coming at a bargain price for NFL teams out there looking to get some undervalued talent out there in free agency this offseason. So, Travis, let's start with you. Let's go to our overpaid players segment. Who's one guy that you feel like will get overpaid in this free agency market?
I think the guy who's going to get overpaid is the biggest player in the free agency market. It's got to be Kirk Cousins. Everyone is talking about how much money is Kirk Cousins going to make. And like me and you talked about on another video, we felt like Kirk Cousins is, in the quarterback range between the top 10 to top 17 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Really.
But right now, you look at, his free agency, what timing he's hitting the market at. You just don't see opportunities like this. And this is going to change a franchise for the better or for the worse. But Kirk Cousins, he's about to get paid like a top 3 quarterback. He might get paid as the top paid quarterback in the NFL. So if you're asking me who's going to get overpaid, it's got to be Kirk Cousins, because there's no way you can sit there and tell me with a straight face that he's worth more than $30 million a season.
Oh, there's no doubt that Kirk Cousins, he's going to reset the quarterback market here in free agency here. He's going to be at least getting $30 million a year, which might be a little bit of an overpay for a guy, but I can't really blame any NFL franchise out there, because if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance of winning anything. So that's the price you got to pay for a quarterback. I heard a rumor out there that the Jets were willing, because of their cap space situation, they were willing to pay Kirk Cousins $60 million in his first year of his contract. And then just space out the rest of the contract. That's ridiculous, in my opinion.
What a Jets move.
That's such a New York Jets move, like you just said. But, yeah, I can see Kirk Cousins being a little bit overpaid, but I can't blame any NFL team out there. You got to get a quarterback. So it's not too often a guy comes out like that in free agency for a quarterback. So, but for me, a guy that's going to be overpaid in free agency is wide receiver Sammy Watkins, formerly of the Los Angeles Rams. Got traded there last offseason from the Buffalo Bills, and this guy has been a classic disappointment throughout his entire career. The talent has been there in flashes, but whether it's injuries or a lack of consistent production, just hasn't been worth that first-round pick that the Buffaloes, even though the Buffalo Bills traded up to go and get Sammy Watkins, just hasn't been worth it, I feel like, throughout the durations of his career. Hasn't been a game-changing wide receiver. And last year with Sean McVay, one of the most innovative offensive minds in football, only had, I believe, 39 catches, for 8 touchdowns. A lot of touchdowns for that few catches, but not many catches nonetheless. Cooper Kupp, a third-round pick, and Robert Woods, really a no-name wide receiver before this past season, had a lot more production than him. And I just don't feel like he's a number one type of guy that can really change your offense. He's going to get paid like a number one wide receiver, though. He's 24 years old going into free agency. He's got that glamour of being a number one pick. And, a lot of teams are going to get kind of caught in the trance of he's got great size, he's got great speed skill, but there's just too many risks here for me. I would pay a good price of maybe $6 to $8 million on him per year, maybe, but I would not pay him as much as $10 to $12 million like he's going to get in free agency. I would not pay him that much money.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. For me, I wouldn't pay him more than $10 million. And coming out of college, teams were comparing him to Julio Jones, and he has just not lived up to the expectations at all. Like you said, if it's been through injuries or inconsistent play, and you look at him and his skill set, he's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got everything that you think could be. He's got everything you think he'd have to be a number one wide receiver. But like you said, he played under Sean McVay, one of the best offensive minds in football, and he really didn't have great numbers. He's a good red zone threat, since he's tall and he's got a big body, but he really didn't do that well last season. But since he's only 24 years old and since he's got such great numbers, I think he's going to get paid a lot of money, and a lot of people are considering him the top wide receiver. But I agree with you. I think he's going to get overpaid.
Who's another guy that you think is going to get overpaid in free agency, Travis?
Well, it's not just one guy. I think it could be a couple of guys, and I'm talking about the Minnesota quarterbacks, where you got Casey Keenum, Sam Bradford, and Teddy Bridgewater are all free agents, and Minnesota's got a very difficult decision because if they choose the wrong guy, that's going to cost them their job. So it's a very tough situation. You look at Casey Keenum last year, he had a lot of success. He led the Vikings to the NFC Championship game, and he did pretty good. He's got some good mobility. He's got a strong arm, and he takes care of the football. Those are three things that teams look for in an NFL quarterback. I think Casey Keenum, he's a guy, he's got an interesting career since he was so good in college. And then in the early seasons in the NFL, he was bouncing from team to team as a backup. So I think he's going to try to get a very big paycheck since he's coming off a career year.
Yeah, a team like Denver or Arizona, whoever doesn't get Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to overpay to get this guy because he will be the top quarterback on the market then. I'm more scared of a guy like Teddy Bridgewater coming off a major injury. He just got back healthy. It was a very scary injury that he got through. I'm glad that he's okay and he can continue to play football at this rate, but I would not spend any money to really invest in him as a starting quarterback at this point. Maybe unless it's a one-year deal because he didn't really excite me as a quarterback prospect coming out of college. Didn't really prove that much to me in his first couple seasons. He was more of a game manager type of guy. Obviously, he was still a young quarterback at that time, but I just wouldn't invest a lot of money into him, really invest a lot of time in him as a starting quarterback going forward. Maybe a one-year deal, like I said, and if he like really busts out and has a great year, then great. Maybe you can try and pay him, franchise tag him, keep him as a long-term option. But I think there's a lot of risk with paying Teddy Bridgewater any type of money and really expecting him to be a starting quarterback in free agency.
Yeah, and then is there anyone else that you think may get overpaid in free agency?
Yeah, one last guy for me is Nate Solder, left tackle, formerly of the New England Patriots. And it's not that he's a bad player or anything like that. He's a very solid player, but he's getting up there in age. And he's not a game-changing. He's not a true blindside protector like he was earlier in his career. Injuries and some age has kind of slowed him down a bit. But he's going to get overpaid because he's the only legitimate left tackle in the market right now. And with all these great pass rushers coming out of college and that are dominating the league right now, teams need to be able to protect the quarterback. It's the most important position to protect. Really, the left tackle position is the third most important position in football when you look at quarterback as number one, pass rusher number two, and then left tackle number three because you need someone to protect that guy. Otherwise, you have no chance of really winning in the passing game. So he's going to get overpaid by a team desperate for a left tackle. And again, he's a solid player, but I fear that he might be, hitting the end of his career there. He might be tailing off a little bit. So buyer beware, I'll say.
Yeah, and then transitioning from players who might get overpaid to bargain players in free agency. Andrew, I'll start with you. Name me someone who can be a bargain free agent.
Yeah, I'm going to go with interior lineman here. Zach Fulton, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. And for me, this is a guy that he's a very solid football player overall. He's not a world beater by any means, but he's very versatile. He can play either center or both guard positions. He's very good in the system of the Kansas City Chiefs last season. I feel like he'd be a very good fit for the Chicago Bears per se because he knows that system that they ran in Kansas City with Matt Nagy coming over from Kansas City to the Chicago Bears. But even if he doesn't go to the Chicago Bears, he's a very solid football player overall. Again, he can play all three positions in the interior, and he's got very good movement skills for an interior lineman. So he's a very underrated player. He's very solid overall, but he's, again, not a world beater, not a Pro Bowl level guy, but just very solid overall.
Yeah, and then for me, this is a guy, he's not underrated. He's pretty widely known around the NFL, but I'm going to have to keep with, interior defensive linemen. I'm going to have to go with Muhammad Wilkerson, who was just waived from the New York Jets. I think this is a very interesting free agent, considering that early in his career he had a lot of success with the New York Jets. He was one of the best defensive ends. He was very good at playing against the run and the pass. He's very good at getting to the quarterback. And like you said, pass rusher is one of the most important positions on a football team. And Muhammad Wilkerson, over the last couple seasons, his production has fallen off a little bit due to inconsistency and injuries. But with him getting waived by the Jets, he's going to have the choice of which team he wants to sign with. And it's coming at an interesting time, considering he's only in his mid-20s, and I think he's still got great football left ahead of him. He's one of the best defensive linemen, and I think whoever goes out and gets this guy, considering he's had injuries and that his production has fallen off, they might not have to pay as high as a price for him as they would have like 3 years ago.
Yeah, with Muhammad Wilkerson, he was a guy for me that he's kind of the classic case of he's going to play very well until he got the big contract, and it's kind of what happened for him with the New York Jets. I think he was going to get paid around like 20 million this past season, I believe, before he got cut, which is just ridiculous for a defensive lineman, in my opinion. But he's a very talented football player still. He still kind of hasn't been the same player since he broke that leg a few years ago before he got that big contract extension. Uh, but he's a very risky player. I feel like because again, he kind of reminds me of an Albert Haynesworth. You remember who was a very dominant force for Tennessee for a lot of years, and then once he got that big payday from the Washington Redskins, just never lived up to the hype whatsoever. Maybe a fresh start, a new place, a new scenery will do him some good. He can kind of return to that dominant level that he was a few years ago with the Jets. But buyer beware, I feel like there. But he could become at a very bargain price, though, because teams might be thinking about that when they're looking to sign him, and maybe they'll put a chip on his shoulder, and he can be a very good player again next year. But for me, another guy that might come in at bargain price, Allen Robinson. I kind of touched on this in our other video for top 10 free agents. But Allen Robinson's a guy that I feel like he's the number one wide receiver on the market, but coming off a torn ACL, teams might be a little bit gun shy in terms of wanting to give him a huge extension or a huge long-term contract overall. So maybe he might get stuck with a short-term deal, or maybe a deal where he's not getting paid a lot of money, at least initially. He might have to earn some way through incentives. I kind of compare it to Alshon Jeffrey last season, where teams weren't really sure whether they wanted to pay him number one wide receiver money, but he got a short-term deal and parlayed that into another bigger contract extension once he was able to prove himself a little bit. So that might be the case with Allen Robinson here. Teams that are needy for wide receivers, such as the Chicago Bears, Baltimore Ravens, could really parlay that into getting a number one wide receiver for cheap.
Yeah, and then the final guy who could be a bargain player for NFL teams. How about cornerback Morris Claiborne? This is a guy that's been has been very productive over the last couple of seasons. He's a former high draft pick who's still, at his age, he's still got a few more good seasons left in football. And for a team that has had a lot of struggles in the secondary, adding Morris Claiborne could be a big addition if they're looking to, improve their secondary, but not break the bank to improve their secondary. Morris Claiborne would be a very good option to look at.
Yeah, I agree. Morris Claiborne's a very solid football player. Not going to get a lot of interceptions necessarily, but he's a very solid cover corner. He's more suitable to be a number two cornerback, I believe, but he can come in at maybe $6 million per year and just be a very solid football player.
Yeah, well, that's our thoughts on, possible bargain players and also possible guys that might get overpaid in free agency. Let us know in the comments below. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know if you think we missed any players who might be players who will get overpaid or guys who could be bargain players. Let us know in the comments if we missed anyone. And thank you guys so much for watching.
Yep, thanks guys for watching.